Welcome to Show Up Anyway with Renee Dallow for creative entrepreneurs, business owners, and humans navigating the messy middle of visibility, leadership, and being seen. You do not need to feel fearless to move forward. You just have to show up anyway. Hey there, friends. Welcome to episode 2 of Show Up Anyway, a podcast for creative entrepreneurs and anyone who's looking for a little more confidence, visibility, and marketing help. I'm Renee Dallow. I'm your host. This is an impromptu setup in my living room because it's hot in LA, y'all. It is a heat wave. I have all the air on and all the blinds shut, and we're doing the thing. So a question that I get all the time is, Renee, how did you start your public speaking career? And it's a story that I love telling because I think it really illustrates why I wanted to name this podcast Show Up Anyway. And I also think there's a lot of lessons in there to be learned. So here's the story. It was 2016. At the time, the Rising Tide Society was a networking group in LA. It was a newer group. For those of you who do not know what Rising Tide Society was, RIP, Rising Tide. Rising Tide Society was a networking group that was free to attend, and it was nationwide. It was co-sponsored by Honeybook. And in LA, we had 4 chapters because LA is huge. So I was the chapter lead for LA East. And so we had 3 other chapter leads in LA. And once a month, we would host a free meetup. And there was always a theme, and we would do our best to get volunteer venues, and everyone really just pitched in. It was a huge labor of love. When I started, we had 2 members. And when I left 4 years later, we had 2,000. So for me, at that point in my career, especially in 2016, we were still in early days. It was my volunteer work. It was my pride and joy. And it was honestly where I made a lot of my industry connections. The founders of Rising Tide, Natalie Frank, who's now with Flowdesk, and Krista Jones, they wanted to come to LA to do a live in-person event, like a bigger event, which I felt really like, to use a British word, chuffed at the time, because we were still in early days, but we were a strong chapter. We were known as a strong chapter. So they wanted to do this in-person event called Tide Talk. The idea for Tide Talk was that it would be multiple speakers in a big enough location to hold a couple of hundred people. And that would be an in-person event that was bigger than our monthly meetups. And so Krista and Natalie emailed me and said, do you know of any local speakers that might want to speak? So I sent them back a list of names, including like Jasmine Starr, who I had done a wedding with, my friend Mindy, who was doing at the time social media management for Wedding Pros, like a bunch of names. And Krista wrote back and said, what about you? Well, I didn't think that that was an option. What about me? I had not at that point spoken publicly except as a Rising Tide leader. I had been leading the meetings in LA East every month, but that was it. When she wrote me back and said, what about you? I did pause because I thought, well, what would I even talk about? I was a wedding planner and I didn't yet have any thought leadership out in the world. There's a quote from Tina Fey that I think about a lot, and especially back then was really in the forefront of my mind. And the quote from Tina Fey is, say yes and figure it out later. And so when that email got to me, I said to myself, okay, well, I have to say yes and then I'll figure it out. But I did write back and say, well, what would I talk about? And she said, whatever you want, which was a lovely, very generous thing to offer a novice speaker. I wonder at this point in life, now that I think back on it, I wonder if they knew I hadn't spoken publicly. I mean, I was an actor beforehand, but I wasn't a public speaker the way I am now. So they said, you can talk about whatever you want. And I think I said, give me a couple days. And I did some journaling, which I journal all the time. So basically I went into my journal and I was like, oh shit, I got this offer. And I said yes. And what am I going to do now? At the time, I was reading a book by Tara Moore called Playing Big, which is still one of my favorite all-time books. If you haven't read it, please go read it. And one of the chapters in that book is about limiting language, about how women in particular use a lot of hedge phrases, a lot of phrases that both undermine our competence and also our confidence in group settings. And so I was really taken with that particular chapter. And I thought, I wonder if I could talk about that, something about that. And so I started, obviously, long before ChatGPT, I started journaling on what is my take on this idea. Of course, borrowing heavily from Tara and also crediting her, of course. I started riffing on this idea that in the wedding industry, the term day of coordination doesn't make any sense because obviously the work that you do as a day of coordinator is not just done on one day. And in order to get the kind of money you need to get in order to make a living, calling something day of and charging several $1,000s for it really is a disconnect for the client because they're like, why am I paying you all this money for one day? So I set out at that moment to use my time on stage to change that, among other things, but to hit that point, to really hit home on this. I don't think this is fair. I think we as the industry can change it because we are the industry. And that was pretty much the thesis statement of my time on stage. The reason I love this story is because there were several points in time where I could have, or maybe even should have, backed out or said, like, I don't know what I'm doing. I didn't have a speaking coach. I basically went on like vibes and impulse. I wrote my talk, like I wrote it out like a journal entry. And then I tried to memorize it. And then as it got closer to the time of the Tide Talk day, I realized I was not memorizing fast enough. And so I thought, well, I'm just going to have to make my slides and do my best. I remember being in the car with my husband driving downtown and muttering under my breath the opening paragraph because I was like, well, if I can at least get the opening paragraph out, then the rest of it probably will make sense. And the rest of it, I have notes on a piece of paper and I have the slides. When I got to the venue, I realized I couldn't see my slides. My slides were above my head. They were on a screen above my head. So thankfully, I had my notes. I also, once I got there, realized that every person, there were 3 other speakers. One of the speakers was a couple, a duo. So I guess technically 4 other speakers. They were all very skilled public speakers. And then there was me pacing in the back of the room going like, what am I doing? Now, thankfully, the part of my brain and body that is a performer kicked in. And I was able to kind of nail the talk, if I'm being honest. Even looking back, I'm like, the grace of God was with me that day because I kind of killed it. Even looking back, I'm like, damn, I kind of killed it. Now, what I want to say about this in relationship to showing up anyway is that someone else might have said no to Krista in that moment, saying like, what about you? What about you? It's a great question to be asked. What about you? I just decided in that moment that not only was I going to say yes and figure it out, but I had to figure out how to rise to the occasion. Something else interesting happened in the lead up to that event, in that what was originally supposed to be 200 people in person, because they sold out the free tickets pretty quickly, they decided to stream it to YouTube. Now, this was something that wasn't done a lot in 2016. Like now, of course, we stream everything everywhere, but the technology was not where it is right now. So the idea that we were going to be going live on the internet at the same time of doing it in person was kind of like wild and ahead of its time. And honestly, I did not understand the implication of what that would mean for my message. And for me as a speaker, I didn't understand the amplification of that. So what ended up happening was that there was 200 people in the room and about 5,000 people who watched it on YouTube. And so the next morning, I woke up to many emails and DMs in my Instagram asking, can you come here? Can you come talk? Can you do this? At the time, webinars were also a brand new thing. A lot of requests for my time. And I couldn't have seen that coming. And it wasn't even my goal. I just wanted to do a great job in the room. And I wanted to get this message across that day of coordination, no good. Limiting language, no good. We can do better. We are the industry, like a rallying cry a little bit. Once that talk lived on the internet, what ended up happening long term was that people started recognizing me low key, but recognizing me at industry events. So I'd be at an industry event and someone would come up to me and say, I think I know you. How do I know you? I feel like I know you. And honestly, no one should have known me by then because I was only 2 years into my business, maybe 3, 2.5. And so for me, I just kept thinking, oh, I must look like someone you know. And over time, I started realizing in all these conversations, when we finally got to the heart of it, they watched me online, which now, of course, we watch everybody online. But back then it was new. So then there became a joke in my friend group about, oh, you're so famous. Everywhere we go, someone knows who you are. It wasn't really the case. They would just say, you look familiar. How do I know you? And I would say, did you watch the Tide Talk? Oh, yeah, I did. Oh, yeah, that's where I know you from. That is the genesis of my speaking career. once that happened and I realized that there was a lot of opportunity out there, of course, then I got serious about promoting myself as a speaker, about saying yes to opportunities, both paid and unpaid, and really developing my craft as a speaker, but also as a thought leader. Because once you talk about one topic for a while, like the power of language, day of coordination is not a thing, people eventually say, okay, what else you got? And to be honest, that's the part I wasn't prepared for. Someone said, what else do you want to talk about? And I was like, I did all my work already. My work is done. I already know what I'm talking about. And they were like, yeah, just kidding. You need way more talks. Long story short, a couple of years later, I think it must have been 2 years later, I started speaking at Wedding MBA. And then my career took off in a whole different direction because that was so much more exposure. So in the stories of showing up anyway, this is one of my favorite because you have to meet the moment. You have to figure out what parts of you are already in you so that you can meet whatever moment you're in. So my question for you today, and what I want you to think about when you hear this story and just when you're in your everyday life, what opportunities are on your bucket list or on your goal list or on your vision board? What things exist in the world that you want to be a part of that you have not pitched yourself to yet? What have you not thrown your hat in the ring for? What have you not said yes to yet? And why are you holding yourself back if so? If the problem is fear, just know that you are not alone. Of course, there's going to be fear, but I think we have to do it scared. I always advocate for taking definitive action before you feel 100% ready because you are never going to feel ready. The only way to get ready is to get into action. So what in your life or your business do you want to pitch yourself for? Listen to my voice and please go ahead and pitch it. Especially these days, there's no reason not to pitch yourself when we have an entire internet at our disposal where we can do the research to figure out what we need to do to prepare to pitch. And not only do we have the research, but now we have a helper in AI that can help us craft a pitch for whatever opportunity you want. I'm still pitching myself daily. I just sent a pitch last week to do some correspondence for Bridal Fashion Week. I am never going to stop pitching myself. It's part of how I get work. But if I let myself get scared of every potential opportunity, or if I let the fear stop me, then we would not be sitting here together, friend. So again, think, journal, figure out what in your life are you waiting for? Because the days are passing. We're not getting younger. In fact, with every passing day, you're getting more skill, more life experience, more brave, hopefully. I turned 50 a couple of weeks ago. And one of the things I journaled that day was, I'm not finished. Very definitively, I wrote, I'm not finished. And in very many ways, I feel like I'm just getting started. So what are you pitching yourself for this week? I would love if you're listening on Spotify, tell me in the comments below. If you're listening through my email, respond to the email. If you're listening on Apple, find me on my Instagram at Renee Dallow and DM me and let me know, what are you pitching yourself for? Is it a podcast? Is it an article? Is it a TV segment in your local news? Is it collaborating with someone on Instagram? Is it doing an Instagram live? Shoot your shot. Shoot your shot. There's no day like today. There's no time like the present. There's not going to be a better version of you than right now. Why not? The worst that can happen is you get a no or a not right now. And in that case, you make a date to circle back with both yourself and that person you're pitching. And furthermore, if it's a project that you can get off the ground yourself, like a little podcast like this, or a new Instagram channel, or a self-published book, please listen to my voice and please schedule time with yourself. Schedule a date with yourself, a creative date with yourself to figure out how to make it happen. So much happens when we just say yes and figure it out as we go. Thank you, Tina Fey. If I ever meet her, that's what I'm going to tell her. I'm going to say, thank you for this quote. And I want to know from her, what did she say yes to and then figure it out on the way? Obviously SNL, probably 30 Rock, probably everything she's ever done. Creative people figure it out. And we are all creative people. So I would love to hear from you. What are you pitching yourself for? What are you going to say yes to? And next week, I'm going to tell you the story about how I went from an attendee to an MC at a social media conference this year, because that is the true essence of showing up anyway. So have a great week, friends. I will see you next time. And in the meantime, keep showing up. This episode is brought to you by the Verve and Vision Club, my membership and community for creative entrepreneurs who want more skills and more confidence at getting more visible in their business and their lives. We have so much inside the membership. We've got monthly social media prompts. We've got a whole suite of editing videos to teach you how to edit your reels. Not only that, we have a 31-day sprint. We've got trend reports. We've got 2 monthly calls with me where we do live coaching. That is all inside the Verve and Vision Club. If you want more information, go to reneedallo.com/club. See you next week.